Kia ora and welcome to Tarmac. I'm Dave.
And I'm Matthew, and we've been doing a very light off-roading today in an off-road expert. This is the Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland.
That's right, it's the 5th generation Grand Cherokee that's grander than ever. So come, let's take a look at this. Now there's something quite comforting about the Jeep as a brand. I mean, it's been going for, I don't know, something like 8 decades or just, it's been around forever. And this Grand Cherokee, as I say, is now in its 5th generation. This generation itself has now got a new architecture. It's now more aerodynamic. It's got better noise, vibration and harshness. And I mean, look at it, it's actually lighter as well. So less of a big footprint on the ground below, which is pretty cool. And yet it still comes with these lovely 7-slot grills. It comes with a Jeep badge. It comes with this little camera here that squirts up and makes sure it stays clean. It's got actually halogen headlights, but basically LED lights around the side here, LED fog lights, and just, it's still so imposing, so, I don't know, so ready to take wherever you want. And I reckon it looks great in this, I think it's a crystal or a dark crystal black or something like that. Very strong. Basically to underline the point that I'm making about it going anywhere, this one is trail rated, a trail rated 4x4, so literally will go anywhere that you want to take it. Uphill, down dale, and actually across rocks and all that sort of stuff. And the good thing about it, this is coming with 18-inch wheels, but these tires, which are basically all-terrain tires, are also Kevlar belted. So essentially, you could hide behind here in a gangster shootout and be quite safe. I think that's a great idea. Actually, we don't recommend that. Looking further down, you've got the Grand Cherokee badging. You've got black roof rails up here, and also acoustic glass all the way around. And moving a little bit further to help with that sort of gangster appeal, look at this, blacked out or basically privacy glass. Now, those of you that have watched some of our videos, and we're hoping that you have, you'll know that we've done the Grand Cherokee, but in the L size, so basically the large size, which has then got an extra 2 seats in the back. So this is extended all the way through. This one's a 5-seater, so you may have to lose some of the family, but you know, it's worth it to take it wherever you want. Our model is the Overland model, which is basically sits in the middle of the range, which is good, but it's actually very well spec'd, and Matthew will show you more about that soon. But in terms of the rear end, what we've got is a nice roofline spoiler, again with another camera that squirts stuff across to make sure that it's kept clean. You've got these lovely LED tail lights here, if I can show you. The 4x4 badging. We've got some surrounds here for the exhaust, and also very limited overhang at the back here, so making sure that you again can go everywhere. It's also got a kicker tailgate, which opens up to plenty of space in here because it is the 5-seater, and a little bit of an area here for your spare tire. Pretty good. And I've got my spare tire here. Anyway, let's get under the bonnet. What we have here, thankfully it's actually written on here, is a 3.6 litre V6 engine. It's actually mated to an 8-speed gearbox as well, so plenty of flexibility going on there. And actually it's got a quad track 2 system, which Matthew again will show you around too. Together it gives you 210 kilowatts of power and 344 newton meters of torque. And when it comes to fuel efficiency, well, it's not that efficient, but it's basically 9.9 litres per 100 kilometers. So you may have to stop when you're out on the trail to, I don't know, put your jerry can of fuel back in it. Anyway, thinking of things that look like a jerry can, Matthew's inside and he'll show you what's going on in there.
Now, the reason why I look all sort of like a jerry can today is because it's pretty damn cold. But luckily now I'm on the inside of this Jeep Grand Cherokee, and what a place it is to be, especially on a day like today. You firstly got those seats, which are Napa leather on this particular Overland model, and they're really comfortable. They've got sort of a bucket seat shape look to them, which keeps you nicely contained in the seats while you're going around corners. The seats themselves are 12-way adjustable, electronic of course, for both the passenger and the driver. You've also got 2 different memory settings. You've also got 4-way lumbar adjustment, which is really nice, especially if you've got a bad back like Dave, who's not here for the moment. And the piece de resistance on days when you're feeling a little bit tired and drained after work, if you like. It's got massage seats which you can activate with just one touch of a button, which is conveniently located on the door there, and they are well worth it. Couldn't be better, honestly. The other trick for a day like today, you've got three-way heated seats for both the driver and passenger in the front, and guess what, the two side passengers at the back also get three-way heated seats, as well as three-way ventilated seats all around. So they really have thought of that sort of convenience aspect for both the warmer and colder Jeep audiences, or Jeep buyers if you like. Now going back to the front of this interior, obviously this is the Grand Cherokee, keyword there being the grand bit, and that means that you've got the trappings of luxury in here. Of course, the seats, I've just gone through those. You get the dash, which is trimmed in a lovely sort of dual stitching. You've got soft materials all around. You've got full wood trim across the dashboard there, and then below that you do have some scratchy plastics, but admittedly this is sort of a off-road vehicle, and it is extremely capable off-road, so that's acceptable. But there you go, just for reference, I'll do a bit of scratching around. Anyway, back to sort of this area here. Now down the middle you've got Jeep's Uconnect 5 system there, which I'll go into in a minute. But below that, a really nice touch is you've still got physical air conditioning and audio controls there for your volume, and then of course on off stuff like that. And then you've got your temperatures, your seat heaters and ventilators. It's also got a heated steering wheel there, and get this, it's got quad zone climate control. So you've got one there, one here, and then one each for the two sides of the back. So really sort of you can have different temperatures and different lightings and all this sort of thing going on in here. Now down the middle you've got wireless charging for your phone. You've also got underneath there a 12-volt socket. You've got, now this is pretty cool, you've got charging sets of chargers for each seat, again the two back as well, which are USB-C and USB-A. So each seat essentially gets two different types of charging options in terms of USB, and then of course you have the 12-volt for the front, and at the back you actually have a 3-point socket for this sort of down under New Zealand, Australia market, if you like. So they really have thought of all of your charging needs there for the long journeys. Going back down to the middle here, this knob essentially operates all of your gear related tasks, if you like, so PRND. And then on the left side you've got the different driving modes, of which they have the off-road stuff. So you've got your rock, sand and mud, snow, and then you've got the automatic one, which you'll pick and choose depending on the terrain. And then lastly you've got sport. While on the other side you've got 5 different levels of Jeep's adjustable suspension height, and we're right now number 3, which is really high enough for your city related off-road driving, like curb mounting and stuff like that. 2 cup holders in the middle here, and a neat little slot for your key. I always like that. And of course LED lighting, frankly, all around, again, which you can control via the Uconnect 5. So let's take a look at that. This screen here is Jeep's Uconnect 5 system. Right now I've got it in the home page view, and you can see there that there's the navigation on the left, my audio input on the right. But using those I can sort of customize what I see on here, if you'd like to call it my favorite view, essentially. Now up the top there you've got all of your information on what sort of heating and cooling is on. Interestingly, note that because Jeep is an American brand, obviously that's their first market, you'll see that the temperature on there of the or rather the marker for the steering wheel heater is actually on that side as opposed to this side for our right hand drive markets. There's a couple of things that you can pick up that show it's tuned for a left hand drive market originally, but they do a good job of making it for our markets too. Anyway, back to the screen. Got the home there, and if I keep flicking through, you can go through the media, various different options there for your input. You've got your air conditioning and nice little sliders there for your temperature on both sides, and then of course your little heating and ventilated options there. You've got a navigation system there, and then phone connectivity, and then lastly the Jeep vehicle settings, if you like. Now, a complaint with previous generations of the Uconnect system has always been the speed, but if you've just seen me flicking through the menus and, you know, turning on the navigation and stuff like that, I don't think that's a problem really anymore. They have massively improved on that too, as well as, of course, the amount of apps available. Just look at this. I mean, flicking down, it looks like my smartphone, to be honest. And if I go through, there's obviously Android Auto, and you've got your Apple CarPlay as well, Bluetooth for connection, DAB audio. You've got your off-road pages, which is a extra on this particular overland model, and if I click on those, it'll take me to the more specific off-road based stuff. So you can see here I've got my coordinates firstly for where I am, the altitude, as well as what sort of setting I'm in. I can take a look at some more in-depth sort of off-roading gauges, as well as my pitch and roll there, and select terrain there too. And there's some more stuff as well that I can flick through and take a look through there. So really geared towards being a proper off-road vehicle in that sense. And of course that Jeep Quadra Track and Quadra Lift settings and options as well add to the capabilities of this car. Now the screen in front of you there has a sort of matte finish to it, and you can see the actual sort of backlighting going around there to highlight those curves around the screen. Now the setup, of course, is traditional in its look, but it's fully digital. So on the left side you've got your rev counter, and on the right side you've got your speedo, complete with a couple of other gauges here and there. So you've got your temperature on the bottom left, you've got your fuel on the bottom right, and a little graph, if you look down there, of your Jeep on the road. But if you want to change the look and make that more prominent and the gauges less prominent, you can actually do that just by pressing a button on the steering wheel. There we go. Back to this view, and if I push that, there we go. I've pushed the gauges now to the side, and I can have that sort of view of my car in the middle, and then plenty of view things to keep flicking around there. So it really is set up with so much of information available to you, especially for your off-roading needs. Now the really cool thing here is when you press this button on the steering wheel, this is what I like to call your sort of Iron Man view, if you like, because look at that. You've got that sort of 3D look of the curved different screens and icons going around, almost like a surround view, and you can flick through everything from your navigation to your efficiency, your audio input, as well as your Jeep Quadra Lift suspension settings. Now if I go back to the view before, the other cool thing that Jeep have done here is I can actually switch metrics there. So I just went from kilometers per hour to miles per hour just by the press of a button. Although you might want to double check which sort of metric you are viewing before you head out onto the road, because you might end up doing 100 miles an hour and wondering why you're getting all of these speeding tickets. The steering, of course, is a big chunky unit. It's leather covered and heated, of course. You've got some faux wood trim down the bottom there, and of course your glossy plastic buttons over there on either side. Now your right side has your adaptive cruise control, so that includes your speed settings, your distance settings, all of that stuff is on here. Your left side, on the other hand, is all of the controls that I just used to show you on the screen in front of you. I'm in the back of the Grand Cherokee now, and as you can see, space is not really an issue at all. So firstly, knees, I've got plenty of room there. Shoulder room is aplenty. Headroom, there's tons of that too. And then as you can see, judging by the distance I am from the camera, there's enough space in the back here for 3 full-size adults to fit, really. But you may not want to fit 3 because it's only the 2 seats on either corner that get the heated and ventilation settings, as you will see down there. Those are also the 2 seats that get the dual zone climate control for the back of the car. And then of course you have the 2 different USB charging options there, as well as the 12-volt socket. Now I stand corrected because that's actually not a 3-point plug for our markets. You will need an adapter to use that, but still it is the correct voltage, more or less at least, so it can charge your devices at a reasonable pace. Speaking of reasonable pace, this Jeep may be a large vehicle and packed with lots of luxury trimmings and technology, but it can still handle itself on the road and around corners. So let's go show you that.
So when I say the new Grand Cherokee is really grand, I mean it really is. The fit and finish, as Matthew has just shown you, is just remarkable. It's so much more in tune with some of the other really expensive off-roaders, and this is not a bad thing to be having on your driveway, to be all honest.
Absolutely. And before I get into that, if you needed reminding as to what generation of the Grand Cherokee this is, in typical Jeep fashion, they've left a couple of Easter eggs for you here and there around the car, and the most prominent ones we could find were on the back windows, in fact. And because they are darkened out, you can't see them all too well from the outside, but on the inside you can actually see the 5 generations of the Grand Cherokee mapped out, as well as the Willys Jeep, of course, climbing something as it usually does. And that's a good segue, I think, into this car, because while Dave said, it's really luxurious and has certainly got, stuff like that quadra lift suspension or the quadra track off-road system. It's even got, a digital rear view mirror here, all the bits and pieces that you'd expect to find in certain other luxury SUV brands, but they are here on this Jeep. And having this with its big grille and, its tall front end and all that stuff sitting on your driveway, it looks imposing. It looks like, you are somebody.
I am somebody. As far as driving goes, the visibility is great. Nice big mirrors. Look, visibility out the rear is fantastic because of this digital mirror. Some people, it's actually difficult if you want to go and look at yourself in the mirror because you can't see it. So you do get caught out every now and again if you're like me and like looking at mirrors. But your seating position's tall. Your driving position's great. The steering wheel itself is really good in your hand. It's a nice chunky steering wheel, and you just know where you are on the road and also off-road should you choose to go that way.
It's really interesting. And also, if you are a little bit vain, you can actually have a proper mirror just by flicking that button there to look at yourself. But anyway, let's not get into that. Yes, it can go off-road, and I mentioned that quadra track system before. It has several different off-road modes which you can flick through. It has a low range gearbox mode. It has hill descent control. It has a front view camera for your off-road terrain bits, and it has even an automatic mode in your off-road settings. So they really have covered everything you might need when you are, taking the road less traveled.
And when you are on tarmac, just the amount of silence there is when you finally shut up, it's so smooth and calm, and it sits really nicely on the road with very little interference from the outside. So it really is a very the sound deadening they've done in this vehicle, it really has improved it.
That's right. It has got that famous 3.6 liter Pentastar V6 at the front, which does need a little bit of a push to get this thing moving from time to time. But even when you are quite hard on the accelerator, you'll find that there's no real noise coming through, and certainly no noise when you're going through some of our rougher roads and bumps and speed humps and all that stuff. It just eats it all up every day.
I love the fact of riding on Kevlar tires. That just cracks me up. The infotainment system, brilliant. It's so much more modern than it's ever been, and quick to respond, and it's got everything you need as far as on and off road goes. And it's just the way its road manners are lovely, and its digital system is good, and it's just a much improved vehicle.
It is the perfect car as well for city driving, as you've just seen, because you can mount curbs with no problems at all.
So there you have it, the new Jeep Grand Cherokee. much more refined, much more improved. Yes, it's a little bit different not having the extra 2 seats out the back for the L, but but 2 less passengers is never going to be a bad thing. I think it's great on road. I mean, really refined on road, and I'm sure it's just as good off road, to be honest.
That trail rated badge, means that it is as good as Dave says off road, and the fact that we're sitting in an extremely warm cabin covered in leather on a cold day like this says that this Jeep is doing something right with that.
Absolutely. Let's go and hit the road. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time.